So, as A's, if I had to characterize what you should probably be eating, that would be the short list. Your bodies are genetically geared to vegetarianism, but chicken and fish are acceptable. And as we go through this, every blood group can eat almost everything, but it depends which thing. So when we talk about fruits, you'll have many fruits that are good for you, but a few that are not. You'll have many vegetables that are good for you and a few that are not. So it's like that for every blood group. So in every category, you're going to want to check to be sure you're eating those that are actually beneficial for your body. Nuts, soy, and very limited red meat. Now the book is actually going to say no red meat, but those are fighting words, so I'd like to come out of here still standing. Any of you eat red meat? Does it agree with you?
Just if I eat little of it. I mean, and I've noticed that as I've gotten older, that if I eat too much red meat, it just doesn't agree with me.
Okay, and we'll talk about why that is. Anybody else eat any red meat?
I do, but not a whole lot. I prefer eating chicken or turkey.
Okay. Can you tell the red meat doesn't agree with you? Not so much?
Indigestion, maybe? I don't know.
Well, that's a pretty big indicator right there.
No, it's not doing it.
I don't have either red meat.
You do not know the difference? Okay. And we'll talk about the chemistry of it. I don't want you to listen to what I say and then wonder why is that. I want you to understand just a little bit about the science of the blood type diet so that it makes sense to you that you should eat certain things and shouldn't eat others. What do y'all think the single most distinguishing characteristic of an A is?
The thickness of the blood, or the?
Well, certainly that's one, but there's one probably even stronger than that. A's do have very thick blood, which can lead to a host of issues. We're going to talk about that. Anybody else want to guess? Think of yourself compared to an O, maybe.
Lack of hydrochloric acid.
Exactly. O's have the most stomach acid, hence their ability to digest meat. A's, by comparison, have the least stomach acid. So when I asked, did it agree with you, this would be one reason it's much harder for an A to digest red meat. So there's actually chemistry behind the statement that A's should not eat red meat or should not eat a lot of red meat. Now, how is your blood type determined? Your red blood cells are coated in a protein or sugar or an antigen, whatever you want to call it, that's specific to the A blood type. There are lots of sugars in the world. They all end in the suffix "-ose", and blood sugar is no different. Galactose, glucose, and a blood sugar that's abbreviated GalNAc, and be glad I abbreviated it, are the three sugars that define blood type. You can see from the list here what your particular combination of blood sugars are. While an O is glucose, they were thought to be the original blood type, and so that blood type is determined by only one sugar. A's, by comparison, are defined by a combination of two sugars, glucose and, again, GalNAc. When we look at the B blood type, they are glucose plus one called D-galactose, and when we look at the AB blood type, who's a combination of A and B, they get all three blood sugars. Now, I was asked earlier about universal donor. It's apparent from this chart why the O blood type can donate to the others, because glucose is a subset of the blood sugars for all the other types. By comparison, can you tell me who the universal receiver is? Exactly. AB can receive from any of the other blood groups because no matter who it is, the AB has that component in their blood. Now, always better to receive from your own blood type, but in a pinch, that's why blood transfusions work the way they do. Okay, other places blood type is reflected in the environment. It's in seaweed, microbes, dust, food, animals. And when we talk about food, because that's what we're here to talk about today, the diet for the A blood type, milk contains D-galactose. That is the blood sugar of the B blood type. So it makes sense that if you're not a B and you drink milk, there may be a rejection issue. And we're going to talk about how that happens. Similarly, pork is the GalNAc sugar. So if it were good for anybody, it would be good for A's because that's your blood sugar. But we know pork isn't good because it contains parasites that you can't kill with cooking.
I react to pork. That's
weird, some A, not react to.
But it may be the curing or the way the pork is prepared versus the meat
Okay.
itself, probably.
Yeah, it's true.
When you think
Mhm.
something in the preparation.
Nitrates.
So, have any of you read Dr. D'Adamo's book?
I have.
Okay, so he talks about the concept of a lectin. A lectin is a little piece of protein that exists inside many foods. And it probably came about as a natural insecticide in seeds. So when we look at something like wheat, it contains lectins that probably protected the little seedling as it was growing up. So our bodies don't make lectins, but they come to us through food. And as we pointed out, they cause agglutination. So any of you who have done blood analysis with me know that we want all of the red blood cells to be free floating. They can be touching, but they shouldn't be overlapping. When they overlap, it makes the body very slow in its repair efforts and in its efforts to detoxify. So lectins are generally blood type specific with a few exceptions. Castor beans will make anybody's blood stick together. But when we look at food and we'll look at the banana, because that's the thing that is not good for an A blood type, the lectins represented in my little diagram by the black dots fit in the receptors on the A's blood cell, making all of the cells stick together, leading to that inability to detoxify and inability to repair itself. So when we think about agglutination, what is it? In more common terms, it would be inflammation or swelling, and it's intuitive that that's probably not a good thing. The reason you should care about that is that 80% of the things that the population goes to the doctor for are usually inflammation related. Does that kind of make sense? So most of the medical conditions, the minor medical conditions, are inflammation based or have an inflammation component. And another way to look at inflammation, and this may make better sense in terms of helping you decide what you're going to eat, inflammation is actually just too many white blood cells. So what does that mean? It means that your immune system is kicked up and you've got things going on in your body that interfere with just normal processes. When inflammation is bad enough, white blood cells not only attack the bad guys, but then they start attacking each other. So you can imagine what that does to your overall system. It's not good. And all of the medical conditions we think of that end in itis, like sinusitis, colitis, arthritis, anything with a suffix itis is inflammation based. I'm going to show a list in a few minutes, and if you haven't really thought about it, you'd be astounded at how many conditions relate to ingestion of lectins. Kidney beans, lima beans, potatoes, both white, sweet, yams, blue, black, all of them, cabbage, eggplant, bananas, and tomatoes. So there are many others like red meat, but the issue with red meat is not so much lectin based as it is you don't have enough stomach acid to digest red meat. And then there's an enzyme called IAP that A's do not make at all, O's make a lot of. And it very specifically helps with the metabolism of red meat, of animal fat. So A's have difficulty from an acidic standpoint. They don't produce the enzyme IAP. And there's an enzyme called pepsinogen that O's produce and hit maximum amount 15 minutes into a meal, whereas A's produce that at the end. So just from a timing perspective, that's why red meat is difficult for A's versus it being lectin based like these foods. So when we talk about the effect of the lectins, we have all this gastrointestinal stuff going on, but more seriously, when you eat lectins, they tend to interfere with the microvilli in your small intestine.